In 1989, near the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania, 19-year-old Lori Auker left for work. She was never heard from again.
Liftoff of the 20...
It was NASA technology, a fly, and the family cat that helped solve her disappearance in a most unusual way.
Goals and aspirations for her future as far as becoming a veterinarian, and had a great deal of interest in animals.
Just out of high school, Lori married Robert Auker. He was almost 10 years older and worked in a warehouse. Not long afterwards, the couple had a son, Matthew. Lori took a job at a local pet store to earn extra money. She shared her love of animals with her son Matthew at every opportunity.
When she wasn't working, she'd come in to show him, he particularly liked kittens, and she'd bring him in to show him the kittens, and he liked watching the fish, playing with the puppies. But she was a good mother.
Although Lori and Robert loved their child, problems between the two began to surface. The couple argued, and friends say they were unable to resolve their differences. Just 18 months after they were married, Lori and Robert separated. Lori and the baby moved in with her parents. Robert moved in with his and had visitation rights.
She wasn't happy with him because he had a very controlling type nature about him. She had to answer all his questions before she could go anywhere. He used physical discipline whenever he got upset with Matt, and that's what upset Lori.
While separated, Lori dated occasionally, but only casually. On May 24th, 1989, while Matthew was at Robert's house, Lori prepared for her usual 4 to 9 shift at the pet store. After packing a snack, Lori left for work, but she never arrived. Lori's supervisor called looking for her.
And I asked them if Lori had left for work, and her father said that she had. And I said, well, has she called or anything? Because she's not here at the store yet, and she was scheduled to start about a half an hour ago. He said, no. He said, but this makes me very worried. He said, she left on time.
Lori's father drove the route that she usually took to work. He thought she might have had car trouble along the way. He eventually found Lori's car in the parking lot near the pet shop where she usually parked. Nothing seemed to be out of place. Lori's purse and keys were not in the car.
The disappearance frightened people. The thought that some young woman could go to a mall, a very busy mall, in broad daylight and suddenly disappear, presumably being abducted, really shot a shockwave of fear throughout that rather conservative small area.
Police canvassed the area and questioned employees and shoppers in the mall, but no one saw anything suspicious. Almost from the start, police suspected Lori's estranged husband, Robert, may have had something to do with her disappearance. But Robert said he hadn't seen Lori at all that day, and he had an alibi. He said he was babysitting their son, went shopping, and then went to 2 scheduled appointments.
Mr. Auker told me that on the day of Lori Ann's disappearance that he had been over to Wise Markets to get a disability claim form. And he took that form to an office in Lewisburg, an orthopedic surgeon. And from there he went to the Bloomsburg Sears Mall and priced a dishwasher for his mother.
Police are now asking for the public's help.
For the next 3 weeks, police, family members, friends, and volunteers continued
with movement and with homicide.
Dr. Mahalikas concluded that this woman had been stabbed in the chest and back at least 7 times, possibly as many as 11. But he wasn't able to make an identification from the remains. For that, Dr. Mahalikas asked forensic odontologist Dr. Dennis Asen to make a dental comparison.
Without the benefit of forensic dentistry, when you have a victim such as Lori Auker's, in the Lori Auker case, there are no fingerprints that you can use. The body is unrecognizable because of the disintegration of tissues. Very often, the only thing that does remain is the dental evidence that we can compare to before-death records and establish a positive identification.
After comparing the teeth of the victim to Lori's dental records and x-rays, Dr. Asen made a positive identification.
The victim had 9 teeth restored with dental materials. Those teeth, as it turned out, were the same teeth that
Lori, with the passenger's side door open. You can see that Lori is bent over, looking into the car. The final picture shows Lori's car still in its parking spot, but Lori is gone. The car Lori was standing next to is leaving the parking lot.
The person we've described as Lori Ocker cannot be seen, and we know circumstantially that she never made it into the door. So that, we believe, was the depiction of her abduction.
An automobile expert identified the getaway car as a Chevrolet Celebrity. Although Lori's estranged husband, Robert, didn't own a Chevrolet Celebrity, his parents did. Robert's parents told police that Robert had borrowed their car on the day Lori disappeared. They said they sold the car a week after Robert returned it. Police tracked it through 3 different car dealerships.
It transferred hands within the used car industry a few times and was ultimately purchased. The first consumer that purchased it was a retired state police officer.
The police officer bought the vehicle for his stepdaughter, who hadn't yet reached driving age. So it had been sitting in a garage, a lucky break for investigators.
It still maintained its integrity. By the time we got to it, we were able to access the vehicle, test it scientifically for prints, for trace evidence.
Investigators searched the car, but could find no traces of blood anywhere inside.
We did have some neighbors observe Robert Ocker scrupulously cleaning that car the day after Lori disappeared.
But in the trunk of the car, they found a clue. A tiny strand of hair. Under a microscope, the hair did not appear to be human. On the left is a human hair. On the right, the hair from Robert's trunk. Under an electron microscope, magnified thousands of times, the outer pattern of the hair was more box-like than human hair, similar to the steps on a ladder. The blue specks are dust particles. After looking through numerous species of hair, scientists discovered it was a cat hair. Investigators compared that hair to a cat hair from Lori's parents' cat and found they were microscopically similar. This was significant, since the cat belonged to Lori's parents. Robert didn't have access to this cat, and the cat never resided with Robert and Lori when they lived together. What was also significant, Robert's parents didn't own a cat, and Lori had never been in Robert's parents' car before her disappearance. Investigators believed that this cat hair was proof that Lori had been in the trunk of Robert's car.
Robert Ocker knew his parents were going to be trading that vehicle in within a matter of days. And in my opinion, that's why he used that vehicle and not his own to abduct Lori.
With this evidence in hand, police arrested Robert Ocker for the murder of his estranged wife.
When I arrested Robert Ocker, he said to me, "You've got to be kidding."
What the worst part of it, to me, other than the fact that she died, was when we were told that he had thrown her body in a dump. There's no reason for someone like Lori to wind up in a dump.
Prosecutors believe the surveillance photographs supported their theory that Robert abducted Lori in the mall parking lot. To convince a jury, prosecutors needed to prove that the automobile in the pictures was the Chevrolet owned by Robert Ocker's parents. So they reconstructed the crime. They placed the Chevrolet Robert was driving in the mall parking lot and took photographs from the same position, height. While there, Robert ordered a book that described in detail how to commit a murder and get away with it. The title of the book will not be revealed in this program for obvious reasons. Police officials blocked the delivery of this order. Prosecutors believe that on May 24, 1989, as Lori drove into the mall parking lot, Robert was there, waiting.
What are you doing here? Lori, I need you to come with me right away.
When Robert drove up and opened the door, he may have used some type of excuse to get Lori inside, possibly that their son was sick and he needed her help. Prosecutors admit they don't know where the murder took place. The forensic evidence doesn't say. All they know is that Lori was in Robert's trunk sometime that day and was stabbed numerous times in the chest and back before her body was left at the dump. When Robert later cleaned the trunk, he couldn't see the almost microscopic evidence that Laurie left behind. The cat hair, which had stuck to Laurie's clothing, was transferred again onto the carpet of Robert's trunk. It was an ironic twist, given Laurie's lifelong love of animals.
I remember Laurie as being a very nice person. Just all around nice. She was nice to animals, she was nice to people, and she loved her son, absolutely loved her son.
Robert Auker was found guilty of first-degree murder and kidnapping and was sentenced to death. On appeal, the sentence was reduced to life in prison without parole. NASA's help was an important forensic breakthrough, since it was one of the first times a crime scene photo had undergone digital video enhancement.
The enhancement of the video from the ATM machine was something brand new, something that had never been done before. This is a case that set a trend for prosecutors, certainly throughout Pennsylvania. I think there was an awakening, a scientific awakening on the part of police, on the part of prosecutors. They realized suddenly that there were other tools at their disposal that perhaps they hadn't considered before. And ironically, those tools have now become somewhat routine.